The airline agent's voice was cool, final. No passport, no boarding. My husband's face, slick with sweat from his frantic airport dash, crumpled into pure panic. The flight to her in Paris was pushing back from the gate without him. I watched from my car in the departures lane, sipping my coffee. He had no idea I'd known for 6 months. It all started with that final, flat refusal at the gate. The airline agent's voice was cool, final. No passport, no boarding. My husband's face, slick with sweat from his frantic airport dash, crumpled into pure panic. He'd been screaming at the poor gate agent for a full minute, his voice cracking as he insisted his passport was right there in his carry-on. He dumped the entire bag onto the floor, scattering protein bar wrappers and wrinkled dress shirts, but the little blue booklet was nowhere to be found. The clock above the desk ticked past 10:15 a.m. We all heard the heavy thunk of the jet bridge retracting. His flight to Paris began to push back, and his rage evaporated, replaced by a dawning, helpless terror. He was still begging, his voice thin and reedy, as I took a slow sip of coffee from my car in the departures lane. He had no idea. But let me back up 3 days. It was a perfectly normal Tuesday evening. He was packing his carry-on, the one he'd just emptied all over the airport floor, and he was practically buzzing. This Paris conference is a huge opportunity, he said, folding a sweater with unusual care. The networking alone, it's going to be incredible. He kept using words like vibrant and dynamic to describe a gathering of regional sales managers. I remember nodding, stirring a pot of pasta on the stove, thinking his excitement seemed a bit much. For a man who complained about mandatory team-building exercises, he was awfully thrilled about 4 days of PowerPoints in a foreign country. The next morning, I was paying bills on my laptop in the home office. Absent-mindedly, I opened our shared credit card app, the one we used for household expenses. I scrolled through the recent charges, groceries, gas, the usual. And then I saw it. A single-line item dated for that day. Hôtel de Crillon. Amount, $8,500. My brain stuttered. I knew that name. It wasn't just any Paris hotel, it was the kind of place you see in movies, all gold leaf and marble, where a room cost more than our mortgage payment. A work conference wouldn't book there. And the reservation details, when I clicked, were chillingly clear. King Suite. 2 guests. For 4 nights. He came home late that night, smelling of some new cologne. Sorry, he said, dropping his keys on the counter. Lost track of time. Late strategy session with Claire from the marketing team. Claire? I kept my voice light, casual, testing the water. On a Wednesday? That's dedication. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes as he poured a drink. You know how it is. Team building. Gotta make sure we're all aligned before the big trip. Team building. The phrase landed in my stomach like a cold stone. I thought of the $8,500 hotel suite for 2. I pictured Claire with her perfectly highlighted hair and her laugh that was a little too loud at company picnics. I called my best friend Sarah the minute he left for work the next day. My hands were shaking. I found a charge, I whispered, as if he could hear me through the walls. I told her about the hotel, the 2 guests, the timing. Sarah, who had never liked him, went quiet for a moment. Then her voice was steel. Check his email. Right now? There has to be a confirmation. You know his password from the Netflix account. I did know it. A wave of nausea washed over me, not from fear, but from the sheer ugly clarity of it. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. This was a trail. And I knew exactly where it started. I opened my laptop, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The search bar in his inbox was a blank, waiting void. All I had to do was type one name. Claire. I waited until he was asleep, his breathing deep and oblivious. Then I crept into the home office and opened his email. The search for Claire didn't just bring up a confirmation. It brought up an entire romantic itinerary. a dinner reservation at the Eiffel Tower restaurant, tickets for a private Seine cruise. Every single email was addressed to John and Claire. There was no mention of a conference, no corporate booking codes, just a meticulously planned, disgustingly expensive Parisian getaway for two. The shock was a physical blow, a hollowing out of my chest, but it was instantly filled with something else, a cold, hard, crystalline anger. I knew everything now. The question was, what was I going to do about it? The next morning, I was the picture of wifely support. He was packing frantically, muttering about his flight the next day. Need to make sure I have all my presentation materials, he said, shoving folders into his bag. I smiled, my face a mask of calm. Let me help you organize your documents, honey. You're always so stressed before these trips. He looked relieved, handing over a stack of papers from his desk drawer. And there, nestled between a car insurance form and an old receipt, was his navy blue passport. My heart gave a single hard thump. I took the stack, my fingers brushing the cool, pebbled cover. The plan began to form, fully formed and perfect, in the space of a single breath. I waited until he left for a last-minute work errand. Alone in the house, I carried the passport to the small wall safe in his study, the one he thought I didn't know the combination to. But I'd seen him open it a dozen times while paying bills, his body blocking the view, but his fingers moving in a distinct, memorizable pattern. I spun the dial, right to 21, left to 47, right to 09. The door swung open with a soft click. I placed the passport inside, right on top where he'd never think to look. Then I changed the combination to a new set of numbers, ones only I would know. I closed the heavy door and spun the dial, locking his freedom away. A sly, quiet satisfaction settled over me. Would he even realize it was gone before he reached the airport? Dinner that night was a masterpiece of performance. He was practically vibrating, bragging about the industry-leading speakers at his conference and the crucial networking dinners. I smiled, nodding along, cutting my chicken into precise, even pieces. That sounds amazing, I said, my voice dripping with innocent curiosity. What's the main topic for your big presentation again? He blinked, his fork pausing midair. Oh, regional synergy and vertical integration. Boring stuff, really. I took a sip of water. And Claire from marketing, is she presenting too? You two have been working so closely. A faint flush crept up his neck. No. I don't think her department is involved in this one. The lies were so clumsy, so transparent. I felt a wave of amused contempt so strong it was like a taste in my mouth. He was building his entire fantasy on sand, and he had no idea the tide was coming in. After he went to bed, smug and dreaming of Paris, I texted Sarah. I told her about the emails, the safe, the pathetic dinner performance. Her reply came instantly. Salary. I knew it. Check this out. She sent me a screenshot from Claire's social media posted 3 weeks ago. It was a selfie with a caption that made my blood hum. Can't wait for my surprise trip. Nah. The Paris emojis were a glittering, stupid confession. Sarah had dug deeper, revealing Claire had been quietly bragging to a mutual friend about a generous new boyfriend funding a luxury escape. I screenshot everything: the social media post, Sarah's texts, the $8,500 hotel charge. The validation was a pure, clean fuel. He wasn't just lying to me, he was funding a whole other public relationship. I looked at the non-refundable ticket confirmations in his email. A new, delicious question formed. His trip was crumbling. But what about hers? The house was quiet after he left for his last-minute work prep on Friday evening. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway, the sound fading into the suburban dusk. Then I walked back to his study, my steps unhurried. I knelt in front of the wall safe, my fingers spinning the new combination I'd set. The door opened. There it was, the navy blue passport exactly where I'd left it. A small, solid promise. I didn't touch it. I just looked. Then I went to the home office and opened his email again on my laptop. I needed to be sure. I found the airline confirmation for his flight to Paris, the one leaving at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. I read the terms and conditions, my eyes scanning for the specific phrase, non-refundable. The tickets for the Eiffel Tower restaurant and the private Seine cruise were also non-refundable. A slow, deep breath filled my lungs. Everything was locked in place. His perfect getaway was a series of closed doors, and I was holding the only key. I closed the laptop. The question wasn't if he would panic, but when the call would come. Saturday morning, he was a whirlwind of faux important energy. He rushed around, zipping his suitcase, checking his watch. "Gotta beat the traffic to the airport," he said, barely looking at me. He leaned in for a quick, dry kiss on my cheek. "I'll bring you back something nice from Paris. Perfume, maybe." The lie was so casual, it was almost impressive. I smiled, the picture of a doting wife seeing her hard-working husband off. "Have a wonderful trip, honey. Knock 'em dead at your conference." I waved from the doorway as he loaded his bag into the cab, my hand moving in a slow, sweet arc. The moment his car turned the corner, the smile dropped from my face. My expression went smooth and blank. The performance was over. The show was about to begin. I knew he wouldn't check for his passport until he was at the airport. He was too arrogant, too sure of his own preparation. He'd look in his carry-on bag first, the special pocket he always used. It would be empty. Almost exactly 1 hour later, my phone rang. His name flashed on the screen, a frantic pulse. I let it ring 3 times, counting the seconds before I answered. "Hello," I said, my voice light and cheerful. "Where is Ite?" he shouted, the background noise of the airport terminal a chaotic roar behind him. "My passport. It's not in my bag. I've torn everything apart." I made a small, concerned sound. "Oh no, John. That's not like you. Did he check your desk drawer? Or, what about the wall safe in your study? You sometimes put important things in there." There was a beat of silence, then a rush of relief in his voice. "The safe. Yes, of course. What's the combination? Hurry." I paused, letting the tension stretch. "It's right to 21, left to 47, right to 09, right? At least that's the one you used last time I saw you open it." I could hear him already moving, probably running for a cab. I opened our shared phone location app on my screen with my thumb. A little blue dot was already speeding away from the airport, back toward home. He wasn't going to make it. 25 minutes later, I heard the front door slam open. He burst into his study, where I was calmly pretending to read a book. He didn't even greet me. He just fell to his knees in front of the safe, his fingers fumbling at the dial. Right to 21, left to 47, right to 09. He yanked the handle. Nothing. He tried again, slower, his breath coming in ragged pants. Again. The safe didn't budge. "It's not working," he screamed, turning to me with wild eyes. "It's the right combination. Why isn't it working?" I stood up, my face a mask of sympathetic concern. "Let me try, honey. Maybe you're just too stressed." I knelt beside him, my shoulder brushing his. I deliberately turned the dial to the old combination, making a show of it. I pulled. "Oh dear," I said softly, injecting a note of helpless worry into my voice. "It feels jammed. Maybe the mechanism is stuck?" He let out a strangled cry of frustration and slammed his palm against the metal door. "I don't have time for this. My flight board's in 45 minutes. He scrambled to his feet, looking around the room as if a spare passport might materialize from the air. He was out of options. I knew the emergency passport office was closed on Saturdays, and even if it weren't, he had no valid reason for expedited service. His fantasy was crumbling in real time, right in front of me. He raced out again, deciding to try the airport anyway, to beg and plead. I returned to my chair and watched the little blue dot on my phone scream back down the highway. At 10:18 a.m., my phone rang one last time. I answered. All I could hear was the hollow, echoing sound of a terminal and his voice, broken and desperate. They won't let me board. They said without a passport, I can't get on the plane. It's gone. I didn't say a word. I simply held the phone to my ear, listening to the sound of his world ending. Then I hung up. I picked up my own phone, opened my text to Sarah, and typed a single line. He missed his flight. I added 3 crying, laughing emojis. Her reply was instantaneous, a string of champagne bottle emojis. A deep, quiet joy settled in my chest, warm and solid. His trip was over, but I was already thinking ahead. Claire would be waiting at the Hôtel de Crillon in Paris, all packed for 4 nights of luxury. She'd be checking her phone, wondering where her generous boyfriend was. And soon, very soon, she'd find out. I sat on the sofa, scrolling through my phone with a detached curiosity. It didn't take long. By that afternoon, Claire's Instagram stories were a masterpiece of passive-aggressive fury. A blurry photo of a packed suitcase captioned, "When you're all dressed up and nowhere to go." A close-up of a cocktail at what looked like an airport bar, the text reading, "Some people just ruin everything." The final story was just a black screen with a single broken heart emoji. I took a screenshot of each one, saving them to a special folder on my phone. My husband's phone I knew would be buzzing nonstop. He'd be texting her a hurricane of excuses, lost passport, faulty safe, terrible luck. I imagined her reading them, her pretty face twisting in disbelief, then in disgust. The last screenshot I took was of her profile, now displaying a simple, telling message, "No new messages accepted from this user." She had blocked him. I felt a cool, smug satisfaction settle over me. His meltdown at the airport was nothing compared to the one he'd be having now, alone in a cab, realizing his fantasy girl had just ghosted him. And he still had to come home. I got up and walked to my home office, opening my laptop to a folder labeled Financials. I had some preparation to do before he arrived. He returned just after dark, a shell of the man who had left that morning. I heard the cab pull away, then the slow, heavy drag of his speed up the walk. The door opened and closed with a quiet click, not a slam. He stood in the foyer, his carry-on bag still in his hand, his suit rumpled. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. "The safe," he said, his voice a dry rasp. "I need a locksmith. I need to get into that safe." I didn't move from where I stood, leaning against the doorway to his study. A powerful, icy calm filled me from my fingertips to my core. "You don't need a locksmith, John," I said, my voice even and clear. I turned and walked to the wall, safe. He followed, a spark of confused hope in his exhausted face. I reached for the dial. I turned it not to the old numbers, but to a new sequence I had set 3 days ago. Right to 04. Left to 19. Right to 86. The handle turned with a smooth, satisfying clunk. I pulled the door open, reached inside, and pulled out his navy blue passport. I held it up between 2 fingers. His face went slack, then flushed a deep, mottled red as the understanding hit him. It wasn't a malfunction. It was me. "You," he breathed, the word thick with betrayal. Then it erupted. "You sabotaged me. You wanted everything." He was screaming, spittle flying, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "That was a work trip. You had no right." I didn't flinch. I just watched him unravel, this man who thought he was so much smarter than me. When he paused for breath, I reached for my phone on the desk. "A work trip," I repeated, my tone flat. I opened the email. "To the Hôtel de Crillon for 4 nights, with dinner at the Eiffel Tower restaurant and a private Seine cruise. I scrolled, reading his own romantic itinerary back to him in a calm, clinical voice. His rage faltered, replaced by a dawning horror. I opened the credit card app next. The $8,500 charge, non-refundable. Finally, I opened the photos. I turned the screen to him, showing Claire's furious, vanishing Instagram stories. "Some people ruin everything," I read aloud. He stared, his mouth slightly open. The fight drained out of him all at once, leaving him pale and shaky. He saw it now, the money gone, the girl gone, the lie exposed. He had lost it all in a single day. And he had no one to blame but himself. In the weeks that followed, a quiet satisfaction became my new normal. Rumors, once they start, have a way of circulating through an office like a virus. I never confirmed anything, of course, but an anonymous, well-documented email to his company's HR department highlighting a potential misuse of company time and a conflict of interest with a junior colleague named Claire certainly sparked an inquiry. By the end of the month, the gossip was everywhere. Claire, unable to face the sidelong glances and the whispered conversations in the break room, submitted her resignation. The promotion John had been so sure of, the one that was going to be finalized after his big conference, was quietly given to someone else. His professional reputation, which he valued almost as much as his own ego, was now permanently smudged. I heard about it all through Sarah, who had a friend in his accounting department. I'd listened, sipping my coffee, feeling a serene sense of justice settling into my bones. I was already seeing a lawyer drafting papers untangling our lives. I was thriving in the quiet of the house that was soon to be only mine. The text came on a rainy Tuesday night, weeks after he'd moved into a bleak corporate apartment. "Please, we need to talk. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I'll do anything. I'll pay back every penny." I didn't reply. The next evening, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole to see him standing there, drenched and disheveled, his eyes pleading. He looked smaller. I opened the door, but only the width of the security chain. The cold detachment I felt was absolute, like a pane of thick glass between us. "There's nothing to talk about, John," I said, my voice carrying no heat, no anger, just finality. "The papers will be served next week. My lawyer has all the evidence. Don't come here again." He started to speak, to beg, his words tumbling out in a wet, desperate rush about forgiveness and second chances. I didn't hear them. I simply closed the door in his face, the solid thud of the deadbolt engaging sounding like a period at the end of a very long, very satisfying sentence. I walked away, and I never looked back. I heard his muffled voice through the wood, pleading, promising, begging for a shred of the mercy he'd never shown me. I leaned my forehead against the cool, solid door. "Enjoy the memories of Paris, John," I said, my voice clear and calm. "They're all you have left." There was a beat of stunned silence, then a fist hammered against the door, a weak, thudding rhythm of pure frustration. It went on for a minute, maybe 2. Then it stopped. I listened to the sound of his defeated footsteps retreating down the walk, the soft click of a car door, the engine starting and fading into the rainy night. The vindication that washed over me was clean and bright, like sunlight after a storm. He was gone. And I was finally completely free to build something better. The months that followed were a masterclass in moving on. I took a certification course leveraging the financial skills I'd honed managing our household into a new job at a small ethical investment firm. The people were kind, the work was challenging in the right ways, and my opinion was valued from day one. Sarah dragged me out to a book club where I met a man who listened more than he talked and laughed with his whole face. It was slow and sweet and entirely mine. And one rainy afternoon, while sipping tea at my kitchen table, I did something for myself. I booked a flight to Paris. A single ticket. I'd managed to claw back $3,200 of that non-refundable hotel charge through a very persistent credit card dispute, citing services not rendered. It wasn't the full $8,500, but it was a start. My start. I wondered sometimes if he ever truly understood the lesson, or if he was just nursing his wounds and blaming the world. I got my answer by chance, 6 months later, in the same airport terminal where his life had unraveled. I was heading to my gate, my own carry-on rolling smoothly behind me, when I saw him. John was slumped in a cheap plastic seat at a distant gate, strapping a scuffed budget airline suitcase. He was alone. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes fixed on the dirty floor, and he looked diminished. A ghost of his former arrogant self. I didn't alter my course. I didn't slow down. I just walked past, my head held high, and he never once looked up. The closure was so complete it was almost anticlimactic. He was just a man in an airport, and I was a woman on